What's up, YouTube? This is Galadrim here again with another YouTube video titled Player's Guide to Building Events in Star Citizen. Now, for those of you who don't know me, one of the primary things that I do in this community is build awesome events that typically involve combat. They are open invite. They are typically open to the community, meaning that anyone can come. You don't need to be in my org. You don't need to be a part of my organization. None of that. It's if you find out about it and you have the link to join, pop on the Discord, join in when the event starts, and we'll throw you right into the mix. So I have a lot of experience doing this. I've hosted events with hundreds of players at a single time. We've done narrative events, we've done PvP events, we've done player trade events, we've done like heist missions, and all of it is unscripted. Now, for those of you who have heard about the events, some of you might come back and say they are scripted, and I'll explain that, give some context here. So what we call is we stage events, meaning that we set the stage, we build the stage, which I'm going to show you in this guide here. And so we might like invite some people to participate, but then once the event starts, there's no script. We're not like following a certain set of expectations. It's just whatever happens, and that is where the fun comes in. If you found out you were being guided along a little roller coaster, it loses a lot of the allure to it that we found. So in this video, we're going to go through a guide, share some of my best tips and tricks, share kind of the thought process that we go through now when we're building events, and hopefully this guide is helpful to you guys. Any questions, drop them down in the comments. Any feedback as well, we'd love to hear it. Let's get right in. All right, so this is a little tool I whipped up. This guide is going to help us kind of break down the different categories of things that you guys need to think of when you are thinking of potentially planning something for your org, for the community, maybe for just you and a group of your friends. These are common things that we think you need to think about. So first off, we start off with customer motivation. In this particular example, it's player motivation. What is it that the players you're trying to draw in want to do? Are you a mining org? Are you a cargo org? Are you a combat org? Do you like PvE or do you like PvP? Those are two things that you really have to think about. And you have to understand the context of not just you and your tight-knit group of friends, but anybody who's coming. So if you are sending this and this is an open invite to the community, you have to start thinking about what the community wants. And if the community might not want that, then maybe this shouldn't be an open invite thing, if that makes sense. So some of the questions I like to ask are, what is your org's focus? So what is your org's focus? This is basically, like I just said, are you mining, cargo, salvage, PvP, PvE? Are you player trade? What's the focus? First off, you want to ask yourself that question. How many active players do you have as a core? So as a core, this is when you log on and play, who are the regulars? Are you seeing 5 people? Are you seeing 10 people? Are you seeing 100 people? What is your core player count? What do the core players want to do the most? Once you've established who the core players are, now you can ask those same players, what do you guys like to do? Do you find that they're often doing the same things over and over again? Do you find that they're always seeking for new experiences or new things? You want to ask them, because if you can't get your core players on board, there's no chance you're going to get the other players on board. So you really need the core players to be invested into the idea of whatever you're trying to plan and get them on board. And if you don't have a core, then you can kind of skip this step, because the thought process you need to go through is a lot different. Next question is talent level of your core. So if your core group of players are they talented at what they do? Are they kind of new to the game? Are they wishing for more experience? Are they constantly looking to ask questions, or are they the ones who are offering their advice? Are they the ones offering their experience? Like, you're gonna have to gauge your core level, because if all of you guys are fairly new to the space you're trying to jump into, then maybe you should reach out to a group who does know what they're doing more and just get some feedback from them. And then I would say the last question for now, we're going to come back to this, but last question for now is, how well do you know the community? Now in this case, the community is very subjective. Like, the community I know is very PvP focused, because that's the community I kind of surround myself in. But for you, it might be, what does the community do for salvage, or industrial, or whatever it might be. And the reason this is important is because if you're going out into the community and you're asking the community to be involved, you can't just know what you guys like to do. You have to know, what are others around you who maybe might be your quote-unquote competitors, what are they doing? Are they having more success than you? Are they having less success? What are some things they do well? What are some things they don't do well? And you can take a lot of those things and implement them in your events to hopefully make your events cooler. So, these are some of the starting questions. Now we'll move over to customer challenges. In this case, player challenges. What issues or challenges make these motivations hard? And what is it that players are wanting to do? Like, what are the issues and challenges that players face when they're trying to do what they want to do? Number one, player counts. I hear this all the time. We don't have enough players to do what we want to do. That's always problem number one. This is our number one problem as well. There are a lot of events that we've had to scrap the idea of simply because we realized that the scope and scale that we needed was not quite achievable, either for the game, like the game just isn't designed to handle the level of players we wanted, or we just couldn't find the players to get the number we needed. Next question is skill level. This one, we've already kind of touched on it. How knowledgeable is the group that you're trying to work with? Something that we have found and we've struggled with is when we invite orgs and orgs bring their crews into our events, they are almost always a higher skill level than the solos that we get. Maybe the solo, maybe the duo, like the guys who like don't really play as groups, they are almost always worse. And this makes balance really hard. We've had several events where one team had way too many solos, and it made coordination difficult. The skill balance was totally out of whack, and it just caused all sorts of issues. So you really want to gauge your skill level of your expected attendees. You're never going to get this perfect because there's going to be last minute people who join in who you won't have had time to kind of do your research on, and you may not have any experience or knowledge with those particular players, but it's absolutely something you want to think about because it might force you to make some last minute changes, and last minute changes is something you absolutely need to be willing to do. Another challenge, external opposition. Shout out to my boys, well, not really my boys, but shout out to Griefernet. They have popularized this concept of external opposition. If you're not familiar with Griefernet, they are an org that is basically famous for hunting down events, what they call Bob events, and blowing them up. Whether it's literally blowing them up, whether it's ramming, whether it's just killing them all. disrupting things in any way they can think of. They're very creative. They're very smart about it. And they use a lot of really powerful tools to make this happen. Now, there's lots of other orgs that do this too. And maybe you're just competing with a friendly org and they're coming in as well. But if someone's not invited and how do I want to word this, and is organized enough, what is the risk level that you face? So something that we often think about, I'm going to put it in the same box, is how can another group disrupt our event? This is a question that you need to think about every single time you host an event. If you're not thinking about this question, you're planning it wrong. This is always on the forefront of our minds because we have a lot of groups that look at what we do and want to try to blow us up. Now, personally, we love that because we're PvP focused. We love it when people come in. It's a blast. It's actually our favorite thing. But it can still be disruptive in a way, and we still have to prepare and plan for it so that we can also have fun. If we were not prepared like we are, it would not be nearly as fun because a lot of time and effort and energy would go into planning these events, and then they'd be disrupted. So what I like to do is, first off, who are your enemies? This is a question you should also be asking a lot. Of the groups out there, is there another group that doesn't like you? Is there a player that doesn't like you? Are those players in your Discord? Can they see these events? How private is the event? The information that's being shared? Can your enemies see it? We personally have quite a few enemies, which we love. Like I said, we love it. And it makes everything really exciting and interesting. But some orgs don't want to have to deal with that. And unfortunately, that's just not a luxury you have. You have to think about these things because if you don't, then bad things happen. So you have to kind of do a tally. Who are your enemies? What do they want? And what are the most likely outcomes if they were to hit your event? What are some challenges and what are some maybe creative ideas that you could think of? So for example, I'm personally a big supporter of what GrieferNet does, but not of the group itself. I think the concept of hunting down events and trying to steal things, kill people and all whatnot is a cool concept and it makes for really fun events. I just don't like the way they personally go about it with like some of the vocal stuff that they do and the excessive amounts of trash talk and like just weird stuff they do. That's where I struggle, but the concept of what they do in game I think is really cool. And so what I like to do, and I think I do this for every single event, is I look at the event from the eyes of someone who would want to disrupt it in the most creative way possible. So, for example, this is kind of goes back to the how can another group disrupt your event, but knowing your enemies and who are your enemies, so like having a whole grasp on who your enemies are is super important, which kind of leads into the next one is what do your enemies do? So what we like to do is we like to analyze our quote-unquote enemies, even though they're not really, because they haven't hit us in like 12 months or whatever, but is we like to do an analysis and go, okay, if they were going to hit us, what is the method they're going to use to hit us? And more often than not, we use research. We do things like how they hit previous events in the past. And this isn't just for GrieferNet, this is for all sorts of orgs that we've run into that have done this before. It's what ships do they like to use? What methods do they like? Are they rammers? Are they bombers? Are they shooting torps? Are they spamming light fighters? Are they dropping infantry? Are they trying to board your ship and blow it up? Are they trying to steal things? Are they combat focused or are they not? And you have to analyze them and think, okay, so for example, I know that group XYZ likes to interdict and then spam light fighters. Okay, so if they like to interdict, then that means that you need to be prepared to stay in the fight. That's not a scenario where you're going to be able to run, because if they bring multiple interdictor ships, the chances that you find them are very, very low. So you now need to plan for a scenario where you are forced to not leave the fight and you have to stay. So what does that mean? Do you have skilled enough fighters to take care of a threat like that? If they come at you with 20 or 30 guys, do you have the firepower, the ships, the talent to repel an enemy of that scale? And if you don't, what are some things that you need to do to take steps to fix that problem? Or do you just want to be okay with that as a risk? What if they like to bomb? Well, in 4.4, we just received the new MDC, and after some cool testing, that thing is pretty dang good at bombs. So maybe it just means you get a bunch of MDCs, you layer the ground with MDCs, and try to build a bomb-proof net. Now, it might not be perfect, but it will help you guys out. What if they like capital ships? Idris, Polaris, and they just spam them. A bunch of solo cat monkeys. Like, alright, now we got to figure out, we probably should interdict them, so maybe we want to have an interdictor in our fleet. We're probably going to want guys who can specifically target components like doors and see if we can start boarding them. If we can board those ships, that's a very easy way to disable them. With engineering coming around the corner, it's going to be understanding engineering and understanding how to take out capital ships. And it's whatever. It's, you can be as creative as you want in coming up with the solution, but first you have to understand what the problem is. And if you don't know what the problem is, how are you going to build an accurate solution? And now, you're not always going to get this right. This is an experience thing. The more you do it, the better you'll get at anticipating some of these really creative methods that these groups use. So yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but it's something you need to at least start thinking about so that you can start planning for it and preparing for it. Next note is, what can your enemies know/gather? So, this is probably one of the biggest talking points I will issue. I cannot say this enough. I'm gonna look straight in the camera for this. Please stop sharing all the details in Discord. Stop it. I don't know why this is such a problem, and I see it happen all the time. If you are a semi-big org with more than, let's say, 100 people, you need to stop doing this. Or you need to be really, really smart about how you do it. So I'll give you some examples of things we do. We run like a little bit of a spy network, meaning that we call it a defensive spy network, meaning that we like to build lists of players that we know their entire focus is to join our Discord and gather information to pass it to their group. And then we take those people and we put them in a special little category. And they don't know it, but we will feed them fake information, misleading information. Sometimes it's completely BS, sometimes it's partially BS. And we'll feed that to them so that they go feed this false information back to the people who are trying to hurt the event. Sometimes we'll give them a role that looks identical to the role that someone else has who has perfect information, and it will be a very limited set of information. And they can't see anything, but they're not going to know that they got put into this special category because there's no way for them to know. But people are really smart, and no matter what you're going to do in Discord to try to like hide or prevent information from getting out, it is far easier to get information than it is to hide information, at least in what we do in the event planning space. So the number one tool, we'll put this down here. Don't tell anyone. And we're gonna bold this. And underline. Don't tell anyone. I can't say this enough. When you are planning something and you're planning an event, the less people who know, the better. Your entire Discord does not need to know every finite detail to your operation. It doesn't matter how many times they ask, who asks, what they want to know. You only tell them when you absolutely have to. So what does that look like for us at Order 66? Well, at Order 66, what we do is we have a leadership team. And this leadership team is highly vetted. We have lots of experience with them. And currently I think we have 7 or 8 guys, including myself. Those are the only people who know everything. Majority of other people don't find out anything about the event in terms of like real details that really matter until like an hour before. And sometimes it's like 30 minutes or 15 minutes before, where we'll actually do a briefing so that the only people who can find out of this information is people who attend the briefing and are then participating in the event. Otherwise, you don't need to know. The only thing you need to know is where do I show up and generally what do I need to be ready for, and that's it. The rest you can explain to people right on the fly, and if you set aside time for a discussion and conversation, you're going to be fine. This one is, I cannot stress this enough. If your event is going to be disrupted in any way, shape, or form, this will be why. Because you've told too many people. And I don't mean literally like you DM someone information. I mean you're sharing too much information in your announcements. The event link is sharing too much detail. Just stop doing it. Stop doing it and you'll be so much better off. Alright, so jobs to be done. What steps need to be taken to make an event that you want to do happen? So, we'll use a combat event for example, because that's what I do the most. Step number 1 is formulate the objectives. Some examples of this could be kill missions, gather missions, capture missions. What are some other ones? Investigate missions. So these are the 4, generally speaking, if we're going to have an event, it's going to have one of these 4 things or maybe multiple of these. What I mean by these is basically like before your event even takes form, you kind of need to know what the goal of the event is. So if it's combat, you need to know, like, are we just killing each other? Is that the focus? Is the focus to maybe like capture the flag or capture the ship, capture the objective, the box, whatever it might be? Is it stealing from someone else? Like, are we capturing something or are we gathering something? And the last one would be investigating, which is one side knows one thing, one side knows a different thing, and then they clash. And each side has different objectives or goals. Next step is, who is our target audience? And a second question in that same category is this open invite or closed? If it's open, then you need to play this very differently. And so what I'll do is I'll do closed invite, open invite. For closed invites, estimated player counts, or start gathering player counts from within closed group. What do I mean by this? Basically, send it out to your org. Who's coming? Who wants to come? And never count on this number fully, because it's never going to be right. People always show up last minute. People don't respond. People will respond and then no show. Use this number as a guide, not gospel. For open invite, it's a very different set. First, you want to send invites to favorite groups, gather initial numbers, then send to the community through social media, event links, word of mouth, and more. This number is even more unreliable. There we go. So when you're doing open invite, something you need to think about is how unreliable the player count numbers have been. We've had events where our player count number based on estimates was like in the low 100s, and by the time the event ended we realized we peaked at like 230. So we had almost 100 people show up who did not RSVP. That doesn't really happen in closed invite. Closed invite might happen occasionally. You might have like, I don't know, 5 to 10% more, but you're never gonna have 100% more or 200% more. So you want to be aware of your your groups, and you want to plan for numbers accordingly. All right, next task is who provides value in the planning stage, and gather team who provides value and start assigning tasks. So some examples of tasks could be narrative, objectives, gathering players. It could be, let's see, narrative, objective, gathering players, intel gathering, last minute prep, staging of any locations. All right, so that is more or less it. Those are the kind of things you need to think about when you're building an event from a high level. Now, I said that we're going to go back to customer motivation or player motivation because that is true. So when you're coming back, now that you've had time to think about all of these things, you will now want to come back to the beginning and go, what are players wanting to do? So now you've thought about what the focus is, how many active players are in your core, what do the core players want to do most, your core talent, and hopefully you've thought about how well you know the community. Now you need to start thinking about things like, what is my influence on the players? Do they respect leadership? If you can't control the players, especially in large quantities, and they don't respect you, then your event will run like crap. Because they're going to ignore the rules, they're not going to follow rules, and they're just going to trounce all over you, and it's not going to be a good time. Next thing you want to think about is how do I want to word this? I guess, how do I make this as fun given the information I now know? This is kind of like the last question. So when you're thinking about this and you go, all right, I've thought about the motivations, I've thought about the challenges, I've thought about the tasks. Now, how do I make this as fun as possible? And this is kind of where you have to bring everything together and go, what makes this fun? And then how can I elevate that, whatever the answer is, how can I elevate that to another level? So for example, we held an event that had 230 players, and it was a space battle that had multiple fights going on at the same time. So we had 3 fights going on in 3 separate locations at the same time. There was like 170 players in a battle, and it was total chaos, but it was controlled chaos, and it was difficult because we were trying to control them and trying to make it as fun as possible, but we realized that the fights were ending too soon, and because they were ending too soon, we had groups of people waiting, so we had to come up with ways to keep them entertained and whatnot. And that was a mistake on our end, was we didn't properly plan for how fast it could end versus how fast it did end, and it totally went crazy. So we had to audible and essentially on the fly create a second battle of sorts, where we had the winners of these fights come together, we had some of the losers come together, we had this huge final battle, and that brought everyone together again. It made it a lot more fun. And then we also on the fly created narrative missions for people who didn't like PvP. So we had some people running out and going to gather things, we had some people going to investigate other things, and just people who didn't like PvP who still wanted to be involved in the kind of narrative of what was going on. So it was crazy. And that event actually is, to this day, our most positively reviewed event, I think. So always be willing to flex, adjust, make changes on the fly, and kind of just roll with it, because you don't know what's going to happen. We were playing an open world game where theoretically anything can happen, so you need to be prepared for that. You need to plan for it. You need to go through these 3 kind of stages, and it's really hard to make a bad event at that point. So yeah, that'll about do it. This is my guide to building events in Star Citizen based on lots of experience. I have now hosted over 40 events for the community. I've worked with CIG. We've had hundreds of players. I have tons and tons of connections now to the community. So yeah, some of my feedback, let me know what you guys think down in the comments, but I'll see you guys in the next video.